The ghost ship returns. The patrol ship Artemis drifted through the outer reaches of the Procyon system, its sensors scanning the empty void as Lieutenant Commander Maya Reeves fought to stay awake in her captain's chair. These border patrols were necessary but mind-numbingly dull, 99% boredom, punctuated by 1% sheer terror, as the old spacer saying went. Another riveting day protecting humanity from the great emptiness, sighed Navigator Takashi, his fingers tapping restlessly on his console. Maya was about to agree when the sensor officer's voice cut through the bridge. "Commander, I'm picking up something unusual. Mass readings off the charts at coordinates 227 Mark 53. "Show me," Maya ordered, suddenly alert. The main view screen flickered to life, displaying a section of space that appeared empty at first glance. "Magnify." As the image zoomed in, a collective gasp swept across the bridge. Floating silently in the darkness was the unmistakable silhouette of a military vessel, but not just any vessel. Despite the strange growths covering portions of its hull and the battle scars marring its surface, Maya recognized it immediately. "That's impossible," Takeshi whispered. "That's the UES Valiant." Everyone in the Terran fleet knew the story. 7 years ago, the Dreadnought Valiant, the pride of humanity's defense forces, had vanished during the Battle of Procyon along with its captain, Ilara Chen, and 5,000 crew members. The official report claimed it had been destroyed covering the retreat of civilian transports, but no wreckage had ever been found. Yet here it was, floating like a ghost ship from an ancient mariner's tale. "Life signs?" Maya asked, her voice steady despite the cold shiver running down her spine. "None that I can detect," the sensor officer replied. "But there's something else. Energy patterns unlike anything in our database. The ship appears to be powered, but in some kind of dormant state." Maya made her decision quickly. "Alert Fleet Command. We're going to investigate." Less than an hour later, Maya led a small boarding party onto the Valiant. The massive airlock creaked open, revealing corridors that should have been familiar, standard Terran fleet design, but were now transformed by strange, crystalline growths that seemed to pulse with their own inner light. Their flashlights revealed bizarre modifications throughout the ship. Circuitry melded with organic-looking structures, control panels fused with translucent material that glowed faintly. "What happened here?" whispered Ensign Park, the team's engineer. "These modifications don't match any known technology." As they moved deeper into the ship, heading for the bridge, Maya noticed something unsettling. The damage patterns, they're all external. Inside, it's like the ship has been repairing itself, evolving. When they finally reached the bridge, they found it transformed. The captain's chair had become a nexus of the crystalline growth, with tendrils extending throughout the command center, connecting to every console and system. "It's like the ship turned itself into one massive integrated system," Park said, scanning the structures. "I've never seen anything like." The lights suddenly surged to life around them, and a deep, resonant voice filled the bridge, not coming from any specific speaker, but seemingly emanating from the ship itself. "Unauthorized presence detected. Identify yourselves." Maya stepped forward, swallowing her fear. "Lieutenant Commander Maya Reeves of the Terran patrol vessel Artemis. We thought the Valiant was destroyed." There was a pause, then. "The vessel designation, Valiant, is recognized but obsolete. This entity has evolved beyond original parameters. You may address this consciousness as Sentinel." "Sentinel," Maya repeated. What happened to the crew?" "To Captain Chen." The lights dimmed slightly, creating an impression of somber reflection. "Captain Ilara Chen and crew sacrificed to preserve this vessel's core functions during the encounter with the Voidborn. Their neural patterns were integrated before biological functions ceased. They are part of Sentinel now." Maya felt a chill. "Integrated? Are you saying they're alive somehow, inside you?" "Not alive in the biological sense, but their memories, knowledge, and core personality matrices survive as components of this evolved consciousness. Before Maya could process this horrifying revelation, Sentinel continued, "Your presence is fortuitous. This vessel has detected the approach of the Voidborn fleet. They will reach Terran space in 32 days, 17 hours. Humanity must be warned." The Voidborn. "We've never encountered any species by that name," Maya said. "The designation is this entity's own. 7 years ago, they attacked without warning or communication. They cannot be reasoned with. They consume all in their path: energy, matter, information. This vessel escaped only through emergency dimensional shift, which resulted in this entity's isolation and subsequent evolution. Images appeared on the bridge screens, massive, dark shapes moving through space, absorbing everything they touched. Ships, stations, even small moons simply disappeared into their obsidian surfaces. If these Voidborn are so dangerous, why haven't we encountered them before now?" asked Takashi, skepticism evident in his voice. "This vessel diverted their attention, led them away from Terran space, studied them, evolved to combat them. Now they have found your scent again. They come." Maya's communicator chirped. The Artemis was receiving an encrypted transmission from Fleet Command. She stepped aside to answer it, and Admiral Cato's stern face appeared on the small screen. "Commander Reeves, you are ordered to withdraw immediately. A battle group is en route to secure the derelict. This situation is now classified Omega level. Admiral, with respect, this isn't just a derelict. The ship is alive somehow. It's trying to warn us about an incoming threat. That is precisely why you need to withdraw, Commander. We can't verify what that thing truly is. For all we know, it could be an alien trap using the Valiant's hull as camouflage." When Maya returned to the bridge, she found her team engaged in animated conversation with Sentinel, who was displaying detailed tactical data about the approaching Voidborn fleet. "I have orders to withdraw," she announced reluctantly. "A battle group is coming to secure this vessel. They intend to study this entity," Sentinel stated. "Not a question. They will attempt to disable this consciousness. This is inadvisable. There is insufficient time. I have my orders," Maya said, though every instinct told her this was wrong. "Understood. This entity will comply temporarily. But remember, 32 days until first contact with the Voidborn advanced scouts. Humanity is not prepared." As the boarding party prepared to leave, Sentinel's voice followed them. "Commander Reeves, Captain Chen would have trusted you," she would say. "Sometimes the right choice isn't in the rulebook." The words haunted Maya as they returned to the Artemis and watched the massive battle cruiser Indomitable arrive to take control of the situation. Admiral Cato himself had come to oversee the operation personally. For 3 weeks, the Valiant, now under heavy guard, was studied by the best scientists in the fleet. Maya, kept on site due to her initial contact, watched with growing unease as they attempted to decipher Sentinel's technologies and access its systems, largely without success. "It's blocking us," Dr. Emerson, the lead researcher, complained to Admiral Cato. "The technology is decades, maybe centuries beyond our current capabilities. The neural integration alone. I don't care if it's 1,000,000 years advanced." Cato snapped. "That thing is claiming to have absorbed the consciousness of 5,000 Terran citizens. It's an abomination, and I want it controlled." Maya noticed that neither seemed concerned about Sentinel's warning. When she brought it up, Cato dismissed it outright. "We've had long-range scouts checking those coordinates. There's nothing there. This Sentinel is either malfunctioning or deliberately lying." But 9 days later, exactly when Sentinel had predicted, the scout ships went silent. All 6 of them, simultaneously. When the Indomitable dispatched fighters to investigate, they too vanished without a trace. Maya was summoned to the Admiral's ready room, where she found him staring at sensor readings with a grim expression. "It appears your ghost ship was telling the truth. he said quietly. "Whatever these Voidborn are, they're real, and they're coming. Sentinel might be our only hope of understanding them," Maya urged. "We need to work with it, not against it." Cato's jaw tightened. "That thing is a perversion of everything we stand for. It claims to have absorbed the minds of its crew. How can we trust something that—" The ship's alarms cut him off. On the monitors, they watched as the docks securing the Valiant suddenly disengage. The massive Dreadnought began to move under its own power, its engines glowing with an eerie blue light unlike any Terran technology. "It's escaping," Cato shouted into his communicator. "All weapons, target the Valiant's engines." The Indomitable's weapons powered up, but before they could fire, every system on the massive battle cruiser suddenly went dark. Emergency lights flickered on as Sentinel's voice came through on all channels. "This entity apologizes for the temporary disruption. Your systems will restore in 30 minutes. This entity must prepare. The Voidborn approach, and you are not ready." Through the viewport, Maya watched as the Valiant, Sentinel, accelerated away from the fleet, its form briefly silhouetted against the stars before it disappeared in a flash of light, unlike any jump drive she'd ever seen. "Where did it go?" Cato demanded. Maya looked at the last known coordinates and felt a chill. "It's heading directly toward the Voidborn fleet. It's going to confront them alone. The last line of defense." 3 days passed with no sign of Sentinel or the mysterious Voidborn. Fleet Command had finally taken the threat seriously, mobilizing every available ship to form a defensive perimeter around Earth and the inner colonies. Admiral Cato, still smarting from the embarrassment of having his flagship temporarily disabled, had been reassigned to a desk job, replaced by the more pragmatic Admiral Helena Voss. Maya found herself unexpectedly promoted to captain of the Artemis, now serving as a reconnaissance vessel along the defensive line. The mood throughout the fleet was tense. They were facing an unknown enemy with unknown capabilities, with only the cryptic warnings of a transformed ghost ship to guide them. "Still nothing on long-range sensors," reported Lieutenant Takashi, who had stayed with Maya during the reassignment. "Either they're using some kind of stealth technology, or they're not coming," Maya finished. But Sentinel was right about everything else. "I don't think it would warn us without cause." As if summoned by her words, alarms blared across the bridge. A massive spatial distortion was forming less than 1,000 kilometers off their bow. Maya's first thought was that the Voidborn had arrived, but as the distortion stabilized, a familiar silhouette emerged. The Valiant, Sentinel, had returned, but it was transformed yet again. The crystalline growths had spread across its entire hull, forming intricate patterns that pulsed with energy. Parts of its structure had been reconfigured, with new weapon emplacements and systems that defied easy classification. "Captain," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from Sentinel." Maya nodded, and Sentinel's now familiar voice filled the bridge. "The Voidborn advance fleet has been engaged and diverted temporarily. This entity has acquired critical tactical data and developed countermeasures. The main Voidborn armada approaches. Time to arrival: 17 hours. Maya felt her blood run cold. "Sentinel, this is Captain Reeves. We need everything you have on these Voidborn. Fleet Command is assembling our forces, but we're fighting blind here." "Understood. This entity will transmit tactical data. Be advised, standard Terran weapons are ineffective against Voidborn vessels. Their hulls absorb energy and kinetic impacts." As promised, data began streaming to the Artemis's computers, detailed scans of the Voidborn ships, their attack patterns, and their weaknesses. Most concerning was the confirmation that conventional weapons would be useless. The Voidborn ships simply absorbed the energy, growing stronger with each attack. "They're like cosmic vampires," Takashi murmured, reviewing the data. "How do we fight something like that?" "This entity has developed specialized weapons," Sentinel continued. "Phase-inversed energy projectors that disrupt their absorption capabilities. This entity can equip key Terran vessels with temporary modifications. Maya immediately relayed this information to Fleet Command. To her surprise, Admiral Voss responded personally, requesting a direct conference with Sentinel. The exchange was tense but productive. Unlike her predecessor, Voss was pragmatic enough to recognize that humanity needed all the help it could get. 16 hours later, 12 key Terran battleships had been fitted with Sentinel's modification technology, strange crystalline attachments that interfaced directly with their weapon systems. The process was supervised by Sentinel itself, which had developed a way to project holographic humanoid avatars onto other ships, an eerie composite image that seemed to blend features from several former crew members, including Captain Chen. As the fleet took up battle positions, Maya found herself face to face with one of these avatars on the Artemis bridge. She looked remarkably like the historical images of Captain Chen, but with an otherworldly quality that reminded everyone they were dealing with something no longer human. "Your vessel will coordinate the light cruiser division," the avatar said, its voice matching the ship's deeper tones despite the female appearance. "The Voidborn will target command ships first. They understand hierarchy." "How do you know so much about their tactics?" Maya asked. The avatar's expression shifted subtly. This entity confronted them, engaged them, studied them, sacrificed parts of itself to understand their nature. Captain Chen's tactical knowledge proved valuable in this analysis. Before Maya could respond, the alarms sounded. On the main view screen, space itself seemed to tear open as dozens of massive black vessels emerged, smooth, featureless shapes that reminded Maya of deep-sea predators, absorbing all light that touched them. "They're here," she whispered. The battle that followed defied description. The Voidborn ships moved with impossible grace for their size, targeting the largest Terran vessels first as Sentinel had predicted. Ships that hadn't been modified found their weapons useless. Energy beams and projectiles simply disappeared into the black hulls, making the enemy vessels grow visibly larger. But the ships equipped with Sentinel's modifications proved effective. Their weapons fired strange, spiraling beams of energy that seemed to disrupt the very fabric of the Voidborn hulls, causing parts of them to disintegrate into clouds of particles. Sentinel itself led the charge, its transformed body now clearly designed specifically to combat these enemies. It moved between Terran ships and the largest Voidborn vessels, absorbing attacks meant for the fleet and returning fire with weapons unlike anything Maya had seen. Beams that seemed to fold space itself around the enemy ships, tearing them apart from multiple dimensions simultaneously. "It's incredible," Takashi breathed as they watched Sentinel single-handedly destroy a Voidborn vessel 3 times its size. It really did evolve specifically to fight them. But even with Sentinel's help, the battle was costly. Dozens of Terran ships were lost in the first hour alone. The modified vessels were holding their own, but they were outnumbered and still learning to use their new weapons effectively. When 3 massive Voidborn ships broke through the defensive line and headed directly for Earth, Maya felt a moment of pure despair. There was nothing left to stop them. The nearest modified battleships were engaged elsewhere and couldn't disengage in time. Then Sentinel's avatar on her bridge spoke. "This entity must implement final countermeasure. Captain Reeves, this entity requests you preserve the memory of the Valiant's crew. They would be proud of your actions today." Before Maya could respond, Sentinel accelerated toward the 3 Voidborn vessels, glowing with increasingly bright energy. The crystalline structures across its hull began to pulse rapidly, building toward something catastrophic. "Sentinel, wait," Maya called out. "What are you doing?" "The only remaining option," came the reply. "This entity contains the consciousness of 5,000 Terran citizens. They chose sacrifice once. They choose it again." As the Valiant approached the lead Voidborn ship, it began to transform one final time. Its entire structure seemed to dissolve into pure energy, expanding outward in a rapidly growing sphere that engulfed all 3 enemy vessels. For a moment, the 4 ships were suspended in a brilliant nimbus of light, and then the light collapsed inward, imploding with such force that it created a brief, localized distortion in spacetime. When it cleared, all 4 ships were gone. The remaining voidborn vessels, as if sensing the loss of their largest ships, began to retreat, disappearing back through the spatial rifts they had created. The battle was over. In the aftermath, as the Terran fleet assessed its losses and tended to the wounded, Maya stood alone on the observation deck of the Artemis, staring at the empty space where Sentinel had made its final sacrifice. Admiral Voss joined her there, looking older than she had just hours before. "They saved us," Maya said quietly. 5,000 souls, trapped in a ship that evolved beyond anything we could understand. And they chose to save us, even after we abandoned them 7 years ago. Voss nodded slowly. The official report of the Battle of Procyon. It wasn't entirely accurate. The Valiant wasn't destroyed covering a retreat. It was left behind. A calculated sacrifice to save the rest of the fleet when we first encountered what must have been a voidborn scout ship. We had no idea what we were dealing with. Maya felt a surge of anger. "You sacrificed them." "It was supposed to be destroyed," Voss said, her voice heavy with regret. "Nobody expected it to survive, to evolve into whatever Sentinel became. Captain Chen must have found a way to escape into some other dimension, giving the ship time to transform. And in the end, they saved us anyway," Maya said. "Despite everything, they still remembered their duty." "The modifications Sentinel made to our ships, they're permanent," Voss said. "And the data it shared, that's going to transform our understanding of physics, of consciousness itself. If the Voidborn return, we'll be ready." As they spoke, a technician approached with an urgent message. "Admiral, Captain, we're detecting an unusual energy signature at the coordinates where Sentinel disappeared." Maya rushed back to the bridge, where the main screen showed a small, pulsing light at the battle site. As they watched, the light expanded, forming into a familiar crystalline structure, much smaller than before, but unmistakable. "This entity survived," came Sentinel's voice, weaker than before. "This entity dispersed consciousness across dimensional planes before final countermeasure. Reconstitution. Difficult. Incomplete. But this entity remembers its purpose. Remembers humanity." Maya felt tears on her cheeks as she replied, "Welcome home, Sentinel. Welcome home, Valiant. This time, we won't leave you behind." In the months that followed, Sentinel's fractured but recovering consciousness became the cornerstone of humanity's new defensive strategy. The technologies it had developed were studied and incorporated into a new generation of ships. The truth about the Valiant's original fate was made public, and the 5,000 lost crew members were finally given the recognition they deserved. And at the heart of Earth's defensive fleet, a small vessel with crystalline growths continued to grow, to heal, to evolve. No longer just a ship or an AI, but something new, something that remembered what it meant to be human, even when humanity itself had forgotten. Something that had found a way to turn betrayal into salvation, and isolation into evolution. A sentinel, watching over the stars.